Captain Alex Reeves stood in the departure bay of Velcara Prime's primary spaceport, watching the Homeward run its final pre-launch checks with relief so profound it felt like physical weight lifting from his shoulders. 18 months. 18 months of political maneuvering, assassination attempts, military conflicts, and the constant pressure of trying to hold together an empire that was actively trying to tear itself apart. But it was done. The Velcari civil stabilization crisis, the polite diplomatic term for what had been a brutal succession war, was resolved. Queen Sera Velcarin's authority was recognized by all major noble houses. The empire was stable for the first time since the old emperor's death had left the throne contested. Alex's contract was complete. His duty was discharged, and Earth had sent the Homeward to retrieve him, along with orders that he was to take mandatory medical leave and psychological evaluation before accepting any new assignments. Given that he'd been shot twice, poisoned once, and had survived 4 separate assassination attempts during his time on Velcara Prime, Alex thought the medical leave was probably warranted. Captain Reeves, his Velcari military liaison, Commander Tail, approached with formal bearing. "Your transport is prepared. It has been an honor serving alongside you." "The honor was mine, Commander," Alex said, returning the formal gesture. "Your troops fought with courage and discipline that any human commander would be proud to lead." They exchanged the ritual farewell appropriate to Velcari military protocol, and Alex was preparing to board when alarms sounded across the spaceport. His first instinct was to reach for his sidearm. Even with the conflict resolved, there were still hardliners who opposed the new order. But instead of soldiers or assassins, what arrived was the Queen's personal guard in full ceremonial armor, followed by Queen Sera herself. She was imposing, even exhausted from months of constant crisis management, tall, with the distinctive elegant features of Velcari royalty, her skin showing the faint iridescent patterns that marked noble bloodlines. She wore formal armor rather than court dress, which indicated she was here on official business. The spaceport commander immediately transmitted override commands, and Alex watched with growing concern as the Homeward's engines powered down in response to the royal order. Queen Sera approached Alex directly, her expression unreadable through her careful royal composure. "Captain Reeves," she said, her voice carrying the formal cadence used for official pronouncements. "You were planning to depart without formal audience." Alex felt the situation shifting in ways he didn't like. "Your Majesty, my contract is complete, my mission accomplished. I submitted my final reports yesterday. I didn't believe a formal audience was necessary for standard departure procedures." "Your mission may be complete," Sera said, and something in her tone made Alex's instincts scream warning. "But your obligation is not." She gestured to her guard. "Captain Reeves will accompany us to the palace. The Homeward will remain grounded pending resolution of matters requiring his attention." "Your Majesty," Alex began. "This is not a request, Captain," Sera interrupted, and now her voice carried absolute authority. "You will accompany us. Now." Alex considered his options: resist a royal command in front of witnesses, creating a diplomatic incident, or comply and try to sort out whatever this was through proper channels once they were somewhere private. He chose compliance, but he was not happy about it. The ride to the royal palace was conducted in tense silence. Alex sat across from Sera and the royal transport, her guard positioned between them in a way that wasn't quite threatening, but definitely prevented any casual conversation. At the palace, he was escorted to a private audience chamber, not the throne room, which suggested this was personal rather than purely political ceremony. Once they were alone, just Alex, Sera, and 2 guards positioned at the door, Sera's formal composure cracked slightly. "You think you can simply leave?" she asked, and Alex heard genuine emotion beneath the royal formality. "After everything you've done, everything you've changed, you believe you can board that transport and return to Earth as if the past 18 months meant nothing?" They meant a great deal, Alex said carefully. But they were also my job. I'm a military contractor, Your Majesty. I complete assignments and then I move on to the next one. That's how this works. Not this time, Sera said. Your actions here activated something you don't understand. An ancient covenant, binding and recognized by my people's oldest laws. You cannot simply leave without addressing it. Alex felt cold certainty settling in his gut. What covenant? The Calvara, Sera said. The anchoring bond. An ancient legal and spiritual concept that recognizes when an individual acts as a stabilizing force during a succession crisis. She began explaining, pacing the chamber with controlled energy. The Calvara has not been invoked in over 300 years, but the conditions are specific and unmistakable. When someone fights for the rightful heir without seeking personal gain, without fear of consequence, and without political ambition, when they serve purely because it is right, that individual becomes recognized as an anchor to the throne. I was doing my job, Alex said. My contract specified that I would provide strategic and tactical advice to the legitimate successor. That's what I did. You did far more than that, Sera countered. You advised me when I was vulnerable and inexperienced. You fought beside me when enemies threatened my life directly. You stabilized the realm when it would have collapsed into permanent chaos. And you did all of this while refusing every offer of title, land, wealth, or position I attempted to grant you. Because I didn't want those things, Alex said. I was here to help resolve a crisis, not to profit from your civil war. Exactly, Sera said, and her voice carried something that might have been triumph. That lack of personal ambition is what activated the covenant. By Velkari law, you are now recognized as Calvara, anchor to the throne. This creates legal obligations that transcend your human contracts. Alex felt anger rising. What kind of obligations? You must remain, Sera said simply. The covenant requires the anchor to stay until the realm is truly stable, not just politically, but spiritually and culturally. My authority has been recognized, but the empire is fragile. Noble houses still plot, enemies still watch for weakness. If you leave now, many will interpret your departure as lack of faith in my rule. The stability we've built will fracture. So I'm a political prop, Alex said. A human whose presence suggests legitimacy because I chose to fight for you. You are more than that, Sera said, and something in her voice suggested this was deeply personal rather than purely political calculation. But yes, your presence matters. The Calvara is recognized across all noble houses, written into our oldest legal codes. While you remain, you carry authority to speak on matters of succession and stability. You become part of the legitimacy structure itself. And if I refuse, Alex asked, if I demand to honor my contract with Earth and board that transport anyway, Sera's expression became carefully neutral. Then I would be within my rights to prevent your departure by force. The Calvara supersedes external contracts when invoked, but I would prefer not to compel you through violence. I would prefer you choose to stay. Choice implies freedom, Alex said. This sounds like coercion with extra steps. Perhaps, Sera acknowledged. But it is the law of my people, and you activated it through your own actions. I did not create this situation, Captain. You did, by being exactly who you are, someone who fights for what's right without counting the cost or seeking reward. That kind of person is rare. And in my empire, that kind of person becomes bound to the throne they helped preserve. Alex stood in the private audience chamber, looking at the woman he'd spent 18 months fighting beside, and felt his carefully planned return to Earth crumbling into political complications he hadn't anticipated and definitely didn't want. He'd completed his mission. He'd done his job, and now he was being told that doing it too well had trapped him in an ancient legal framework that superseded his own government's authority. I need to contact Earth, Alex said. My commanding officers need to know about this situation. Of course, Sera said. You are not a prisoner, Captain. You are Calvara. You have freedom of movement and communication. But you cannot leave Velkara Prime until the covenant is satisfied or formally dissolved, and dissolution requires significant conditions that are not currently met. Alex had a terrible feeling he knew what those conditions were, but he'd address that after talking to Earth Command. Right now, he needed to figure out how a successful mission had somehow resulted in him being legally bound to an alien empire he'd been trying to leave. Alex's communication with Earth Coalition Command did not go the way he'd hoped. He explained the situation clearly. He'd completed his mission successfully, but the Velkari had invoked an ancient legal framework that claimed his continued presence was necessary for stability. He requested diplomatic intervention to clarify that his contract obligations were fulfilled and that he should be allowed to depart. The response from his commanding officer, General Martinez, was frustratingly pragmatic. "Captain Reeves, your situation is complicated. We've consulted with our diplomatic corps and legal advisors. The Velkari Calvera is recognized in their legal codes as binding. If they claim you've activated this covenant through your actions, we don't have legal grounds to dispute it under their jurisdiction. Sir, with respect, I'm a human citizen under contract to Earth Coalition," Alex argued. "Their legal framework shouldn't supersede my rights." "Normally, you'd be correct," Martinez said. "But you were operating in Velkari territory, under Velkari law, in a position that gave you significant authority within their governmental structures. You weren't just an observer, you were integrated into their command hierarchy. That integration means you became subject to their legal frameworks." "So I'm trapped," Alex said. "You're in a complex political situation," Martinez corrected. "And our official position is that you should exercise diplomatic flexibility. We've invested significant resources in stabilizing the Velkari Empire. If your presence is genuinely necessary to maintain that stability, then forcing your immediate extraction could undermine everything we've accomplished." Alex felt betrayed. "You're telling me to stay because it's politically convenient." "I'm telling you to assess the situation and make the decision that best serves coalition interests," Martinez said, "which includes maintaining the Velkari stability we worked so hard to achieve. If that means remaining on Velkara Prime for an extended period, that's the cost of successful diplomacy sometimes." The communication ended with Alex feeling abandoned by his own people. Over the following days, he researched the Calvera extensively, trying to find legal loopholes or precedents for dissolution. What he found was discouraging. The Calvera had been invoked only 12 times in Velkari history. In 11 of those cases, the anchor had remained with the throne until death, either their own or the monarch's. Only one case had resulted in formal dissolution, and that required conditions Alex definitely didn't meet. Mutual agreement between anchor and monarch, plus verification by the Council of Elders that the realm was stable enough to sustain the anchor's departure without political collapse. "The problem," explained Elder Kaelrin during a consultation Alex requested, "is that stability is subjective. The Council must be convinced that your departure would not create crisis. Given current circumstances, Queen Sera's relatively recent ascension, ongoing political tensions among noble houses, the fact that your presence has been integral to the legitimacy structure, the Council would be unlikely to approve dissolution for several years at minimum." "Several years," Alex repeated flatly. "At minimum," Elder Kaelrin confirmed. "The Calvera is not invoked lightly, and it is not dissolved casually. You have become part of the foundation of our realm's stability. That is both honor and burden." Alex met with Sera privately that evening in the Royal Gardens, one of the few places where they could speak without being overheard by the constant presence of advisors and guards. "I'm trapped," Alex said without preamble. "By your laws, by my government's politics, by the situation we've created, I have no meaningful choice but to stay." "You have choice," Sera corrected gently. "You could fight this legally, create diplomatic crisis that might eventually force your release. You could make your captivity so politically costly that I would have to let you go despite the Calvera. And in doing so, I'd destabilize everything we work to build, Alex said. Which you know I won't do because that's exactly the kind of person the Calvera is designed to trap, someone who won't sacrifice others for their own freedom. Sera's expression showed something that might have been guilt. I know, and I'm sorry. I invoked the Calvera because I legally could, but also because, she stopped, seeming to struggle with the admission, because I needed you to stay. Needed me as your Calvera or needed me personally? Alex asked. Both, Sera admitted. Politically, your presence provides legitimacy and stability that would take years to replace, but personally, she looked at him directly. For 18 months, you were the one constant I could rely on. Every noble house had agendas, every advisor had political calculations behind their counsel, but you just helped. You taught me strategy without trying to control my decisions. You fought beside me without demanding rewards. You saw me as Sera trying not to fail her people, not just as the queen who could grant favors. She took a breath. When you were preparing to leave, I realized I would be alone again. Surrounded by people but fundamentally isolated, never certain whether anyone's loyalty was genuine or just political theater. I invoked the Calvera because I could, but I wanted you to stay because I don't know how to rule this empire without you. The vulnerability in her admission was profound. This was Queen Sera showing Alex the person beneath the crown, the young woman who'd been thrust into impossible responsibility and had come to depend on him in ways that went far beyond the political. You can't make me your only source of support, Alex said, though his tone was gentle rather than harsh. That's not healthy for you and it's not sustainable. You need to build genuine connections with your own people, develop advisors you trust beyond just me. I know, Sera said, but building that trust takes time, and I'm afraid that if you leave before I've built those connections, I'll fail. The empire will fracture, and it will be because I was too weak to hold it together alone. You're not weak, Alex said. You're 23 years old and you're holding together an empire that was falling apart when you took the throne. That's extraordinary strength. But you're also a person who needs support systems beyond one advisor you're legally compelling to stay. Then help me build those systems, Sera said. Stay, not forever if you truly can't bear it, but long enough to help me develop the connections I need. Teach me to trust my own people the way I learned to trust you. And then when I'm ready, I'll petition the council for your release. I'll let you go home. You promise that? Alex asked. I promise, Sera said. I will not keep you here indefinitely against your will. But I'm asking for time. Time to become the ruler I need to be. Time to build the stability that will let you leave without everything collapsing. Can you give me that? Alex looked at this young queen who'd been handed an impossible situation and had somehow managed to navigate it without losing herself completely. Who was admitting her fears and dependencies with honesty that was rare in any leader, let alone one who ruled an empire. I'll stay, Alex said. Not because the Calvera compels me, but because I choose to help you build what you need. But we're going to do this properly. You're going to actively work on developing other trusted advisors, on building genuine relationships with your council, on becoming less dependent on me personally. Agreed, agreed, Sera said, and the relief in her expression was profound. Over the following months, Alex worked on two parallel tracks. First, he continued his role as Calvera, attending councils, mediating disputes, lending his presence to legitimize Queen Sera's authority. The position was strange and often frustrating. He had influence without clear definition, responsibilities that were more symbolic than practical, authority that came from his status rather than any official role. But he also became deeply integrated into Velkhari political structures. He learned the intricate dynamics of noble house politics, the unwritten rules that governed how the empire actually functioned beneath the formal hierarchy, the personal relationships and historical grievances that shaped current conflicts. Second, he deliberately worked to make himself less essential. He helped Sera identify trustworthy advisors from her own people, nobles who'd proven their loyalty during the crisis, military commanders who understood both strategy and politics, scholars who could provide historical perspective. He facilitated her building genuine relationships with these advisors, encouraging her to rely on their counsel rather than only on his. He created structured processes for decision-making that would continue functioning after he eventually left. And in doing so, Alex also began to understand his own feelings about the situation. He'd initially been angry about being trapped by Velkari law, but somewhere in the months of working closely with Sera, of late-night strategy sessions and shared danger and the genuine friendship they'd built, Alex had developed feelings that went beyond professional respect or duty. He cared about Sera, not just as a strategic asset or a client queen, but as a person he genuinely wanted to see succeed and be happy. "This is a problem," Alex told Sera Chen, a human cultural attaché who'd been stationed on Velkara Prime during the stabilization and had become his one real friend among the human personnel. "You've developed feelings for the alien queen who legally compelled you to stay on her planet," Sera said. "Yeah, that's definitely a problem. Several different kinds of problem, actually." "Is it real feelings or just proximity and shared trauma?" Alex asked. "Because I've been trying to figure that out and I genuinely don't know." "What do you feel?" Sera asked. "I think about her when we're apart," Alex admitted. "I care about her happiness beyond just whether she's governing effectively. I want to make her laugh, which is ridiculous because Velkari humor is completely different from human humor. I worry about her when she's stressed." He stopped, struggling with the admission. "I think I'm in love with her." "Does she feel the same way?" Sera asked. "I don't know," Alex said. "She's admitted she depends on me, that she trusts me in ways she doesn't trust her own people. But she's also a queen who was raised to see relationships as political tools. I can't tell if anything she feels is personal or if I'm just the useful human she's learned to rely on." "You could ask her," Sera suggested, "and create incredibly awkward situation if she doesn't feel the same way," Alex said. "While I'm still legally bound to remain here, that sounds like a recipe for disaster." But the question of his feelings, and potentially Sera's, wouldn't stay unaddressed forever. And when crisis forced them to confront what they meant to each other, it would challenge both of them to decide whether the Calvera that had trapped them together could become the foundation for something they both actually wanted. The crisis came 11 months after Alex had been prevented from leaving Velkara Prime. The Empire seemed stable. Queen Sera's authority was recognized. The major noble houses were cooperating, and the political tensions that had threatened civil war had largely resolved. But a coalition of hardline houses who'd never fully accepted Sera's rule decided to make one final attempt to overthrow her. They'd been planning in secret, waiting for a moment when their coup would have the highest chance of success. That moment came during the Festival of Ascension, a week-long celebration commemorating the anniversary of Sera's formal coronation. The palace was full of nobles and dignitaries. Security was focused on ceremonial functions rather than serious threats, and the general atmosphere was celebratory rather than vigilant. Perfect conditions for a coordinated assault. Alex was in the military command center when the attack began. He'd been reviewing security protocols with Commander Tail, his paranoia about potential threats never quite fading despite months of relative peace. That paranoia saved his life when the coup forces struck. They hit multiple targets simultaneously: the palace throne room where Sera was conducting formal audiences, the guard barracks to prevent immediate military response, and the command center where Alex was located. The assault on the command center was fierce but ultimately unsuccessful. Alex and Tail had enough warning to seal the facility and activate its defensive systems. But Alex's primary concern wasn't the strategic situation. It was Sera. I need to get to the throne room, Alex told Tale while they fought off the assault. The Queen is surrounded by her personal guard, Tale said. She'll be protected, Captain. We need to coordinate the overall response. You coordinate it, Alex interrupted. I'm going to her. He fought his way through palace corridors that had become battlegrounds, his military training and 18 months of surviving assassination attempts keeping him alive through encounters with coup forces who were better armed and more numerous. What drove him forward wasn't strategic calculation or duty to the Calvera. It was the visceral terror that Sera might be hurt or killed, and the absolute certainty that he needed to reach her regardless of the tactical implications. He found her in the throne room, surrounded by her personal guard, holding off coup forces with the kind of desperate courage that had characterized her entire rule. She was injured, a blade wound to her side that was bleeding but not immediately fatal, but still fighting with determination that made Alex's chest ache. "Alex," she shouted when she saw him. "You should be in command center coordinating response." "I needed to make sure you were alive," Alex said, taking position beside her guard. Together, they held the throne room until loyal forces arrived. The coup failed, its leaders were captured, its supporting houses were quickly subdued, and the empire's stability was actually strengthened by the failed attempt. The remaining noble houses rallied around Sera, shocked by the violence and recognizing that her rule was preferable to continued chaos. But in the aftermath, as Sera was being treated for her injuries in the royal medical wing, she and Alex finally had the conversation they'd been avoiding for months. "I thought you were dead," Sera said from her hospital bed. "When the attack began and I couldn't reach you, when reports said the command center was under assault, I thought they'd killed you." She took a shaky breath. "And I realized that losing you would hurt not because you're politically useful or because you're my Calvera, but because you matter to me personally. More than is appropriate for a queen to feel for her advisor, more than is wise given our situations." Alex sat down beside her bed, his own injuries, minor cuts and bruises, forgotten. "I fought through half the palace to get to you. Not because of duty or because the Calvera required it. Because I couldn't stand the thought of you being hurt. Because somewhere in the past year, you stopped being my assignment and became—" He stopped, unsure how to finish. "Became someone you care about," Sera finished quietly, "more than just professionally." "Yes," Alex admitted. "Someone I care about deeply. He took a breath, someone I think I'm in love with, which is complicated given that you legally compelled me to stay here." Sera's expression showed complex emotions, hope, fear, and something that might have been relief. "I would release you from the Calvera, right now if you asked. The Empire is stable enough. The failed coup actually strengthened my position. I've built the advisor network you insisted I needed. If you want to go home to Earth, I won't stop you. I'll petition the council and I'll make them approve your release." "And if I don't want to go home?" Alex asked. "Then stay," Sera said, her voice carrying vulnerability Alex had rarely heard from her. "Not because ancient law requires it, but because you choose to. Stay with me, not as Calvera, but as partner. Help me rule this empire not because you're bound by covenant, but because you want to." She reached for his hand. "I know I'm asking something unreasonable. I know you have a life on Earth, responsibilities, connections to your own people. But I'm asking anyway because you're the first person in my entire life who I trust completely. And I love you, which is foolish and probably politically unwise, but it's true." Alex took her hand carefully, mindful of her injuries. "I love you too, which is why I'm saying yes, not to being your Calvera, but to choosing to stay. I'll help you rule your empire, I'll stand beside you through whatever comes next. Not because I'm compelled, but because I'm choosing you." "You're certain?" Sera asked. "You would give up Earth, your career with the Coalition, everything familiar to stay here with me?" "I gave up Earth the moment I stopped being angry about being trapped here and started being grateful for the chance to be near you," Alex said. "I've just been too stubborn to admit it." "The Calvera," Sera began. can be formally dissolved, Alex finished. You said it yourself, the empire is stable, you've built other support structures. The council would approve dissolution if we petitioned, so let's do that. Dissolve the Calvera and I'll stay anyway, not as your anchor but as your partner, your equal. The Velkari have traditions for that, Sera said. Royal consort, recognized partner to the throne, with authority and responsibility equal to the monarch. It's rare, but it exists in our legal codes. You could be my consort rather than my Calvera. Then let's do that, Alex said. Formally, properly. Let me choose to stay with you instead of being compelled to. Over the following weeks, they navigated the political and legal complexities. The Calvera was formally dissolved. The council agreed that the empire was stable and that Alex had fulfilled his obligations under the covenant. He was released from all legal requirements to remain. And then, in a separate ceremony, he accepted the position of royal consort, partner to Queen Sera, with formal authority to speak on matters of governance, recognized equal in the empire's hierarchy. The transition from legally compelled advisor to voluntarily chosen partner was significant. Alex's status changed from someone bound to the throne to someone choosing to stand beside it. How does it feel? Sera asked him before the formal consort ceremony, going from trapped to choosing to stay. It feels right, Alex said. I was angry about the Calvera for months, but it also gave me time to understand what I actually wanted versus what I thought I should want. Turns out, what I want is to stay here with Sera. The Calvera didn't trap me. It just forced me to slow down long enough to realize where I belonged. The formal bonding ceremony was a blend of Velkari tradition and human customs, creating something unique that represented both their peoples. It was attended by noble houses, military commanders, Earth Coalition diplomats, and thousands of Velkari citizens who'd come to see their queen formally bond with the human who'd helped save their empire. A year after Alex had been prevented from boarding